all the people here, most of you, in fact all of you are entrepreneurs, and when Suresh ji rang me up and said ki you have to deliver some talk over here, I was wondering what I can with the people of this experience. But then one thing struck me, and that's what I've been telling people in all my workshops, since you all are business owners. One thing that's been striking me all the time is, when it comes to business owners, the commitment that they have for their businesses and the commitment their employees have for their businesses, there's a remarkable difference. And whenever I interact with the entrepreneurs, this is one complaint I'm receiving almost every now and then, that how is it possible to bring that level of commitment? If you can have all the entrepreneurs working under one single entrepreneur, that would be a completely different story. But that doesn't happen very often. Now, when I was working on these things, the first thing which I realized was, and this is what I keep sharing, is what I believe is your external training can only take you so far as your internal tuning allows you to go for. Now, this is going to be my stand throughout this thing. Your external training, so we impart training to our employees, best of the training, sales, marketing, whatever and whatever not. But what about the internal tuning? I mean, I have met bosses who've got 3 cars with them, taking care of every problem. They've got money, they've got servants. But what about the employee? I've met employees who have to arrange for the medicine of his father, and therefore is supposed to be late. Who's going to take care of that? The internal tuning. You just got 20% of your employee coming to your office. The rest is with the father, with the kids, with the family. How are you supposed to? And what about the internal tuning? Are we taking care of those internal tunings? And just see about it. I mean, what is a person going through these days? What are you and I going through these days? 3 things which define the business today. Number 1, the competition. The cutthroat competition every one of us is feeling. I was reading it somewhere that, when my friend succeeds, some little thing in me dies. And you agree with it or not? The competition is so cutthroat that we find ourselves wanting, when it comes to appreciating even our friends, unless we start succeeding. The competition, the small kids are feeling the competition. Number 1. And so your employees feeling the competition everywhere. He's got to help his wife have the best of the saris, the kids the best of the schooling. The competition is killing us. It's killing us. Complexity. If I pull out my mobile, that happened with me, Suresh. So one day I was working with my mobile, and I realized I log in using my Gmail ID, and I realized that I was not able to recognize the inbox. It wasn't mine. And I have a daughter 8 years old. I said, Charu, what's this here? She picked up and she said, you're looking at the inbox of your wife. I said, how is it possible? She said, it's possible. I mean, so what should I do? She said, just go to the option and click at all inboxes. That will bring all the, I said, okay, so that's the type of the complexity. I mean, it's a simple example. I'm a fairly tech-savvy guy, but when it comes to these things, you log into your Facebook and suddenly start realizing that kal jo advertisement mein dhoond raha tha amazon mein, now it starts appearing in your Facebook. I'm completely perplexed कि मेरी privacy का क्या हो रहा है? If I'm sending a message on one website, other people are having a look at it. As a business owner, I mean, this is one aspect of the complexity. And then comes the third, which is the most important thing, the changes we are going through. The changes. I'll give you an example. Most of the time, the changes, it's very difficult for anybody to handle the changes. And it becomes funny also at times. So what happened once was, so my daughter, she's a part, she's always a part of my stories. She's 8 years old. So when she just went from class 2nd to 3rd, she felt some changes. The school became strict. The homework became more. And they started giving her punishments. Till class 2nd, no punishments were there. So she was very irritated one day, angry, and absolutely at loggerheads with me. So I thought, I am an expert, so I need to counsel her. So I went to her. And I said to her what I say to everybody else. I said, Charu, you got to handle this. So she said, itna sab kuch ho raha hai, kaise? So I said, see, there is one line which you need to remember. She said, what is it? Now, just imagine, I'm speaking to an 8-year-old daughter. I said, Charu, you got to handle your changes with grace and gravitas. Now, 8-year-old girl, she looks at me and she said, okay, grace and gravitas, and she moves away. The next day, the same thing. She was again angry. I said, didn't I tell you got to handle your changes with grace and gravitas? She said, I know that, but I still cannot handle them. I said, fine. Third day, fourth day, the same thing. Now I'm trying to communicate with this girl, 8-year-old girl. Now when the 6th day came in and I was giving her a lecture for half an hour, and then I said, don't you remember you got to handle your changes with grace and gravitas? My wife came in. She held my hand. She pulled me aside and said, what do you think? This girl is going to understand what is grace and gravitas? I said, she doesn't understand. She said, no. I said, don't they teach that in class? She said, no. So that was it. And I realized that the way I was trying to communicate with her was absolutely wrong for that age. It can't happen. But nonetheless, now what happened was, coincidentally, that very day, I was in the evening working with my events manager. Now she is a lady, 29, 30 years old. So we were sitting across the table, and she comes up and she's working very intently, and then suddenly she starts looking up. She looks at me, she looks down, up, down, and then she pulls out a pen, puts in her ears. Then she said, Dr. Pandey, I got to say something to you. I said, what is that? She said, I've been wanting to say this to you for very long, but you got to hear this. So I got suspicious. I said, what is that? She said, Dr. Pandey, you are growing gray. 50% of your mustaches are white, 50% are black. 50% hairs are white, 50% black are black. I was shocked. Coming from a young lady, this was a shocker. And I said, but you're not supposed to say this to, this is not your business. So she said, I know you will be reacting like this. I said, so let's better get back to the work. So we started working. But this change had an impact on me. Now I was constantly throughout that meeting was thinking, is it that something which is happening to me? Now see the silly things, how they are. I'm preaching to the world that you got to handle your changes with grace, gravitas, but it's taking away my mind, my mind for a while. I'm constantly thinking on it for the next half an hour. And when I get out of the business, I'm still thinking on it. I'm going back to my home, I'm still thinking on it. And when I reach home, coincidentally, I was having my dandruff problem. So that day my wife said, I've got some remedy for you. I said, what is that? She said, sit down. She plastered up paste on my head, henna, etc., etc. Next morning, I got up, got a bath. So I realized that the dandruff is gone. I was very happy, singing. I took a bath, came out of the bathroom and went to the mirror. And there was a horror. What was facing me was a redhead. All the whites have grown red. Believe me. And I had to deliver a workshop that day. And I was shocked, and I was furious, and I was angry like hell. Angry like hell. So I started shouting. What is it? I said, I completely lost my control. So my wife came in and said, what happened? I said, what have you given this to me? She said, I've just given you a dandruff-free head. And I said, what? Along with that, what have you given me? This red head? And we were having a fight like that. That my daughter, she stands up. She comes to me, holds my hand, and say, got to say something to you, Mr. Trainer. I said, what is it? She said, you got to handle your changes with grace and gravitas. I said, fine. I looked at my wife and I said, so she understands the meaning. She said, yes, I guess so. She understands the meaning. Now, I was again thinking about this. Now, see this man who's preaching it to everybody, but he's himself not able to handle this with grace and gravitas. Because when it comes to you, ladies and gentlemen, it's hard, it's tough handling changes. Now, I went to my workshop. So, I entered the venue, and on the reception was my events manager, Mrs. Prachi. I enter, and I went to her. I said, hello, Prachi. She was working with somebody. Said, hello, Dr. Pandey. And she lifted her head. And she had a look at me. She had a look at my head, looking at me, head, me, and said, Dr. Pandey, can I say something? I said, yes. She said, this is not what I meant. I said, I know. She said, I have another thing to tell you. I said, what? You handled it badly. And I said, so what? Dr. Pandey, you could have handled your changes with grace and gravitas. And I realized how difficult it becomes to handle this. Now these changes, these are silly changes. It might have been funny, but there are more difficult changes everybody is facing. Your employees are facing that. Now how to handle that? So time is short, so this is a subject of whole big workshop, but I'll bring it to one point, very important point. Changes. Now how it has impacted? See, how do we think when we are in the present? Right now, just make an audit of your thoughts. You'll realize your thoughts are being impacted by three things. Number one, being quick, how you feel about your past. One thing, somebody who's done something to you, some circumstances which didn't favor you, you faltered, you succeeded, you failed, irritations, angers of the past. Number one, right? Number two, what are you feeling about your present? Are you happy with your present? Are you excited? Or are you unhappy? You're saying this present is not working for me. Third, future. Are you hopeful about your future? Are you thinking good about your future? Are you excited about it? Or you are hopeless? When all this combines, your present is formed. This is what is happening. But how many times in your past 1 month have you spent time doing it? How many times your employee has done that? We are facing the stress, the depression, everything. But unfortunately, we don't have the time to even think about our past, present. So this is one part of it. You've got to take the inventory of your past, present, and future. How you do that, that's the part of a big workshop, but I can't handle it. But one thing I'll say, when it comes to handling this, one part is very important. That is the past. Why? And it's easy also. See, it's important and easy. Why? Because, how do you take decisions? For example, how many of you face this situation? Somebody comes up to you, that person you don't like. In the past, he's been very mean to you. He comes up to you and he says, congratulations, you've done a great job. You've done a great job. He comes up and wishes you. So we plaster a smile on our face, but at the back of mind, I'm still thinking, man, this man is up to something, right? We faced all this. Why? Now what's happening? Our thinking is deciding our emotions, right? Usually that happens the other way around. Now this is an incident which happened very sadly. I mean, it happens with everybody, but it happened with me. So I had a very good relationship and a loving relationship with my mom, but she left us one day and I was here in Delhi and I had to go back to my place. It was 10 hours drive. It was raining heavily. All 10 hours, believe me, I was just trying to explain to myself, being a trainer, I was trying to explain to myself, this happens, man, this happens. Vasamsi Jinani, Yatha Vihai, and all Gita, everything I told myself. And I stopped my tears. I said, this is my test. I'm not going to lose my composure there. But when I arrived at my home, there is a gate, and as I reached the gate, I still remember when I opened the gate, I realized that in my 42 years of life, this was for the first time that my mom had not come to receive me. And I started feeling a lump in my throat. I went in through the door, and her body was on the floor, being prepared for the last rites, and I couldn't control. Believe me, you would have given me the best present of my life at that point in time, the greatest wealth, the greatest success, still that smile could have not come on my face. Now what is happening? My emotions are impacting my thoughts. Two ways. The thoughts impact emotions and emotions are impacting. But with the past, the beautiful thing is where you have the capacity to handle your past is, in past, your thoughts always decide your emotions because past is gone. It's up to you how you interpret it. In the past, you have the power to interpret your past, right? And that's exactly what we are not doing. We are flowing with the past. The past is a place not for residence. It's only for reference. You refer your past, but don't reside there. So I've been indicated the time is getting off, but 2 points I want to say. Number one, how to handle your past. I mean, it's a big thing, but you'll allow me for this briefness. Number one, thankfulness. See, wonderful things have happened to you in your past. Bad things might have happened, but wonderful things too have happened. Some good friend, some good incidents, one success, good parents, good spouse, whatever it was. But you don't focus on that. What you focus on is that one bad incident. So somebody said that many times when one door closes, another door opens up. But we are still not able to focus on that door because we're focusing on the closing door. Are you thankful enough? So make an inventory of the good things that have happened in your past. I'm sure most of us have not done that. We think it's useless, but it's the most useful thing, the greatest source of power, believe me. Do this exercise. Find out good things that have happened in your past. Number one. Number two, about the negative thoughts, because you have to handle them also about the past. 3 things can be done: forgetting the past, suppressing, or forgiving. I believe forgetting is not possible. Suppressing, if you start suppressing, comes back with vengeance. I have examples, but not the time to do it. Third is forgiving, if you can do that. Now with forgiving, again, time is short. With forgiving, first thing what that comes to your mind is, and this I'd like to share here. The first thing is, if I forgive, I'll start loving that fellow. Now just a minute. Truly, I met a man whose wife had been very mean to his parents. When I was asking him to forgive, he said, I can't forgive that lady. Why? Because she's been mean to my parents. And if I forgive her, it means I'm loving her. I said, damn it, you're not loving her, you're loving yourself. See, if you start loving yourself, it will be your face which will be smiling. It will be your parents who will be smiling. Now what you're doing is, you are forgiving not for the love of somebody. It's for your own love that you're forgiving. Now the moment you start realizing it, things start happening. So this is what I want to say. If you can take care of your employees, if you can handle them, if you can just think a little bit about their internal tuning, there are ways to handle them, and they're wonderful ways. Believe me, if you love them, if you can handle their internal problems and internal tunings, they will give back to you immensely. You simply cannot imagine how wonderfully they are going to give back to you.